All right, Mia. It is the 15th, I think it is. And this morning, I have finished reading The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And this wonderful, wonderful, massive book that I have. This is not the actual book of The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is like, it's 40 of these pages, so maybe it's like 100 regular pages. Many moons ago, I was like, when I first started this project and first started doing this, I was like, one of the good things we read would be the entire collection of the Wizard of Oz books. Because I knew that there was more of them, and I had seen the movie many times, and it holds a very specific place in my heart. But I never read that book or any of the other books. So I was like, all right, let's see if we can go find them. And I found that they were selling a collection of all of them. So I was like, oh, this would be great. This is super, super easy. However, didn't read the description well enough to find out that it is just this massive hulking book that contains all of them. Which means that it is basically a book that I can only read at home, because there's no way I'm lugging that thing around. So instead of having 14 books to read that I can just take wherever, it's 14 books that I have to read at home. So yeah. Short read, obviously, right? I mean, it's a children's chapter book. There's not much to say on that aspect. This is going to inflate my numbers for the year, which I'm fine with. Because after all, it is 14 books that are for children that are all short. So yeah. I mean, it's a fun read, right? There are a good number of differences between the book and the film version that, I mean, I'm going to assume that almost every American is familiar with. And part of that comes down to the fact that, when you're making a movie, especially that sort of movie, in which you are introducing a lot of color film for really the first time and things, you need things to stand out, and so you have, everything has to be vibrant, and you change the color of the shoes from the silver that are in the book to these ruby red beautiful slippers, which, as it turns out, is actually within the book. It's just that is where Glinda lives as the queen and the sorceress of the South City, which is rubies, which is also a weird thing now that I'm thinking about it, to be like, to switch in which it's Gayanet, who is the sorceress of the North, who she meets initially and gives her this level of protection as believed to be the weakest of all the witches. And it is Glinda, who lives in the South, that is the strongest of all the witches, right? Very interesting thing to change there. I'm going to assume that part of it has to deal with sentimentalities that are existing at the time within the 1930s, right? You're still existing within times of segregation and Jim Crow laws and very heavy racism, and to imply that the South is the strong one in American culture, from a liberal standpoint, would not be the best thing to do. And so that's why I assume they make the Witch of the North. Yeah. There's a lot of fun things in here, right? Of where there's the whole issue, and I think this comes up with discussions of the movie as well, but all three of your characters that are searching for something, your Scarecrow looking for a brain, your Tin Man looking for a heart, your Lion looking for courage, the answer is they actually all have these things and do them quite well. It's just that they don't have these physical reminders to themselves or badges to wear effectively to show them these things, right? And so, you know, the general message there to children, at least, as well as people in general, should be, even if you don't believe that you have these things, or you don't have just necessarily a reminder that you have these things, you do have them, right? You do have a brain, no matter how dumb you think you are. You do have a heart, and you can be empathetic towards things, no matter how much you don't think that you can. You can always have courage in the face of things, no matter how terrifying things may be. So yeah, all good, very valuable lessons. You have a couple different things here where like you have the difference in the winged monkeys versus in the book versus the film, where basically every single character that we interact with is in some way enslaved. Where the Munchkins were enslaved by the Witch of the East. The winged monkeys were enslaved in a way in which they had to do the bidding every time that the golden cap was used, no matter what the case. I can't remember what the names of the people that lived in the East, or in the West, I should say, but they were also enslaved to the Witch of the West. And even when we get down to the porcelain people of the South, right? As Scarecrow describes at some point, you know, there are worse things to live than without a brain, and it is because they are so beautiful, but they're also so fragile that they become slaves to their own bodies, effectively, of where they can't do anything without fear. And so they become, you know, slaves within that sense. So yeah. You have the character of the actual wizard, who is, I mean, you can make a whole bunch of metaphors here. You compare it to a whole bunch of things. You can compare it to greed and capitalism. You can compare it to colonialism and things, right? Of where, like, the whole concept of he comes out of nowhere and seems to have power, and so the people are willing to support him and give him what he wants because he seems like he has power, and he eventually just tricks them all into doing whatever he wants, including the whole thing with the green glasses in the Emerald City, where the city itself is actually as green as any other city in the world, has the same amount of money, has the same amount of influence, but every person who enters and exists within the city has to be wearing emerald glasses that then change everything to look like it is made of emerald. And so, you know, you can take that as concepts of you give respect to things because you expect that they're gonna be able to do things for you. You treat societies and cultures the way that you think that they deserve to be treated. Things like that. So yeah. I mean, all interesting things to work with and deal with. I think very, in terms of this being a children's book, I think very, very strong kind of lessons that to be willing to talk about with children. Fun stuff there. You have you have the ending in which, like, it is all of our characters end up becoming the leaders or kings of something, which is great. And they are going to all hopefully do a better job, because part of it is they don't have power, right? Which is another thing I should mention, right? One of the very interesting things is that Bayonet, who is the first witch that we meet, gives this kiss of protection to Dorothy, and they describe her as being the good witch. And it's one of those things where it's like, it seems to be that, like, or at least this concept that Frank Baum is putting forward, that, like, good leadership and being a good person is about being humble and understanding what your limitations are. And it is the characters that pretend to have power, like the actual Wizard of Oz, or those that know that they have great power and are willing to use it in the East, the witches of the East and the West, that then become poor leaders. But those that are either humble or those that use their power sparingly are the ones that are considered the good leaders. Maybe that's too much, in-depth looking at these characters, but that's that. Yeah. The other final thing that is the other big difference from the film to the book is that there's not the wonderful scene of, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there, right? Because in the film version, they make it so that it is a journey through Dorothy's psyche, and basically supporting and finding a way to help all the people that she lives with. In this version, right, in the book version, there's none of that. It's just that she just returned home, because no matter how beautiful and wonderful all these other places are, and how much power she could have in them, what she really wants to do is just be with who she loves, right? So that's the wonderful Wizard of Oz. This, who knows, maybe I'll read another one today. Maybe this would be my 14 days of Wizard of Ozing. Who knows?